Hi everyone. Our subject today is charity and alms. ALMS. Charity, everybody knows what charity is. It's like giving something to the poor and the needy, whatever. It's called in Arabic sadaqah. As for the other word, alms, it's very specific. It means zakat. Zakat, and it's essential in Islam. We'll explain this. Now, two different terms. Charity and alms are two different terms. Probably some people would think they are the same. Actually, charity is a very personal and optional act, and it's not considered a religious obligation in general, but it's much desirable in Islam. Charity does not depend on financial contributions, but rather includes acts of mercy, generous gesture, or generosity with time or effort. It's not just about money. It could be, one can be generous by offering time to help someone or effort as well. But like we say, lend a hand, lending a hand or whatever. Charity these days takes the form of one-time donation in the world. One-time donation or contribution or ongoing charitable act. Which means either one time one would give, $1 million, or contribution like every year can put $100,000 or something, which is known to be practiced and exercised in the Western world, for instance. Or ongoing charitable act as well. Ongoing, which means never ending, even after the guy or the givers or the donor, or even after he or she dies. As for alms, alms is obligatory in Muslim. The term is known in Christianity as in Judaism, particularly in Islam. It is obligatory on Muslims. How? On their possession, assets, on their fortunes, the lands, the building, the jewels, the gold and silver, etc. Whatever asset they hold, it's considered to be a fortune, and alms is a small percentage of this fortune should go to the needy and so on. We will list the persons that are entitled of this help. Now, it is paid or collected in the form of a specific percentage annually of his or her money to charitable causes. As stated in verse 60 of Surah number 9, it says, the alms are for the poor, the needy, the poor and the needy, and the agents employed therein, which means people who undertake the act of distribution of alms and so on, and those whose hearts are to be conciliated, to have them close to you, or close to each other rather, and those in bondage, like let's say slave or overemployed or something, and debtors. Some people would lend money because they need some and they're in difficulty to pay and so on. they are entitled, and for expenditures in the way of Allah. In general, any spending in the way of Allah, which means for no cause other than because that pleases Allah, and for the wayfarer, which means the one who's passing by and probably he's hungry, he doesn't have where to stay and stuff like this. It's like an ordinance from Allah. So alms, zakat, that is, it's an ordinance from Allah. Something that Allah kind of imposes on man. Actually, both charity and alms are intended to help the poor and the needy. Both acts, whether performed publicly or secretly, encouraged by Islam, although the secret ones are considered the best, as in verse 271 of Surah 2. It says, if you disclose your charity, it is well. But if you conceal them and give them to the poor, that is better for you, and Allah will expiate some of your sin, which means Allah prefers that you give discreetly, without showing off, without telling everyone. Ultimately, Muslims believe that God Almighty replaces and multiplies the giver's wealth and raises his or her status in faith. It is believed that the donation benefits a person in life and in afterlife. Both acts were and still known and practiced in Judaism and Christianity together in Islam. And it's explained in some details in verse number 83 of Surah 2, which says, and remember, we took a covenant from the children of Israel to this effect, in this issue. And citing what, among other, in the covenant? Worship none but Allah, treat with kindness your parents and kindred and orphans and those in need. Be kind to almost everyone. That is in brief. Speak fair to the people. Talk to them nicely. Be steadfast in prayer. Keep on. And give zakat, which means alms. Okay, that was the kind of covenant and agreement, understanding between God and the children of Israel. So it was well known and well practiced in Judaism. Now, Jesus himself, in Gospel of Luke, chapter 11, verse 39, 40, 41, he asked the Pharisees, he was addressing the Pharisees. The Pharisees are the religious leaders of Israel. Okay? Ask them to give alms. The word alms in the gospel is mentioned exactly like this, alms. Give alms of what they collect, because the religious leaders, they collect money from the public. So he's pressing them to give alms to the poor and the needy from those money they collect, calling them, if they don't do that, calling them hypocrites. Now, in other verse, God precised alms as dues, which means obligation. Properly in harvest time, in verse number 141 of Surah 6, the verse said, It is He, it means God, who produces garden with trellises and without, which means with plants and trees and fruitful, that is, and without fruit, and dates with produce of all kinds, and olives and pomegranates, similar and different. They resemble or they're different. Eat of their fruits in their season, but here's the point: render the dues that are proper on the day that the harvest is gathered. But waste not by excess, for Allah loves not the wasters. Don't exaggerate. Now the term dues in this verse means exactly alms, and the word proper means that percentage which is defined in Islam as 2.5% of the harvest, let's say, of the wealth, of the fortune. As it is calculated by scholars, out of which, besides helping the poor and needy and all the rest, it helps building schools, mosques, and hospitals. So it is not just meant to help needy. Let's suppose there is no poor in some society, in some community, then these alms can help building mosques or school or universities or hospitals and so on. So the reward will be greater, plus it will purify one's soul, and it helps people being close to one another. Look at verse number 34 of Surah 41, what it says. It says, the good deed and the bad deed cannot be equal. They're not the same. Repel the bad with one which is better. So substitute what is bad with something that is better. It means good. Then, in this way, in this case, verily, surely, he, which means whomever here, between whom and you there was enmity, will become as though he was a close friend. Which means if you do good to someone who hates you, keep on doing good, he will absolutely be nice to you. He will thank you and so on. The invitation to be good to one another is so obvious and clear in Islam. And charity, of course, is one such good deed. Here we have to understand that charity is not limited to money. Food and clothing often provided as charity as well. Not to mention the much needed supplies for disaster relief efforts in emergency situations. All kinds of help, giving something that people can use in some distress, in some difficult times, and in need, and so on, is considered charity. The idea is for a person to voluntarily donate something to a worthy purpose. Of course, you don't give charity to someone who doesn't need charity or doesn't need money. He's got it all. He's got everything. He's supposed to give them. No, you give it to the needy. So, to a worthy purpose. In one hadith, Prophet Muhammad said, your smile in the face of your brother is charity. So if you smile to your brother, it's like you're doing some charity. That is, if you don't have money to give, Just smile in the face of your brother, your Muslim brother, or any person or any family. Encouraging to do good and forbid what is wrong. That's the idea. Maybe the ultimate form of charity is the ongoing charity, which is probably the highest, never ending. One that will always have effect and impact on the society or community even after the giver dies. Why it is the ultimate? Because even after the giver dies, this kind of ongoing charity will always have, will always benefit the community. All within, of course, the person's generosity and financial capability. Nobody is obliged to give beyond his or her capability, or even, like we say, with all of his or all of her heart, not giving, like against his or her will, from a good heart, like good-hearted giving. More than one study, we conclude the fact that more than one study conducted in the last decade showed that if every rich person in the world gives away 2.6%, precisely the study said if every rich person in the global gives away 2.6% of his or her wealth to help the needy, there will be no poor on the face of the earth. Islam asks that 2.5% will be given. So can you imagine how wonderful that this be done? But man is man, you know, you know what it means. Not everyone have this wholehearted, good heart, and let's say uh, enthusiasm or will, I would say, to give. Respect. Thank you.